You've been waiting for. Hello folks, how you going? Skypilot here. So today I have the follow-up video to my previous one. Check it out on the screen up there. The unboxing review details of the Eachine 109 latest special with the Racerstar company to give you the 109 with the addition of these cool motors. It's time to get building. Let's put the 109 together. Let's take it up and let's see how these motors go. So I will be jumping ahead, fast forwarding a fair bit of this, guys, so you aren't completely bored. I'll have some links in the description of where I'm up to with the build, and of course if you've got any questions about what goes where, when and how, let me know in the comments. I will get back to you straight away. And of course this will also include the Betaflight setup. So if you guys have grabbed one of these with this awesome little motor and you're going to put it together and you have any questions, this is the video for you. So at this stage of the game, guys, pretty simple legs, couple of plates. So now we'll work out which is our front, so we're going to be calling this the front. So keep an eye on these arms, make sure they're not inverted and round the wrong way. Gently press in these studs so that you can attach your nut so you can attach your screw underneath nicely. Don't tighten it up too tight, just leave it fairly loose now while we complete all the rest of the nuts and bolts. And easiest way, we're calling this the front. It doesn't really matter which way you go, but the flat part needs to be the front here. So we'll call this the front. So we're going to need two holes directly opposite each other for your motors, and two holes here for your left and right sides. So if they're around the other way, you'll need to change it. As you can see, you'll have the innermost nut and bolt. You'll leave a next one free, and then you'll fasten the third one. So the center one here, you're going to put one of these long nylon ones through, and that's going to be the beginning of our stack build. So don't make the mistake of putting the wrong screws in the wrong holes. So the center ones, when you screw them up, they should just be flush with the top of the nut there for the bottom mounting plate. The far end of the arm one, that should have just enough bite on the lock nut to reach the top of the lock nut. There is a bolt slightly shorter, and you'll see if you put that one in, then you've only got a few turns of the thread of the lock nut, which means, like this one here, you've put it in the wrong spot. And you'll soon work it out, guys, because you'll try and put a nut and bolt in somewhere and it simply won't be long enough. So you can see once tightened up, the tops are all nice and flush, and you can also tell by the color there's a more shiny silvery colored one for the very center. The next one out are your plastic nylon ones for your flight controllers, and the next one out closest to the motor is a black steel one. That's the easiest way to tell, so make sure the black steel one isn't too short, otherwise you're not going to have the bite on the nut. Once you've got your hard nylon tall spaces in, then it's Time to think about preparing the ESCs for soldering, which means we're going to need to put on our new Racerstar motors. Remember I said I make the mistakes so you guys don't have to. I've just realised I've forgotten to put on the heat shrink for the motor cables, so I'm just going to have to quickly rip these bolts out and put the heat shrink on. Don't forget the heat shrink, guys. Okay, ready to go. Let's put our motors on. Excellent. That's all the points pre-tinned. We are now ready to cut our motor wires and install the ESCs. What we're going to do now is heat shrink the motor wires down, and I like to do that before I actually do the soldering. It just makes it a little bit easier to get them nice and flat, so then you just need to worry about the ends of them and cutting them to the right length. Motor's in, heat shrink around the motor arms are also completed. Now it's time to tighten up all those nuts and bolts. Place on your flight controller, make sure you do have it facing the right way. Tiny numbers next to 1, 2, 3 and 4, which are the motor orders. It's time to cut your motor wires and get them soldered onto the flight controller. If you're slightly confused about the wiring order, it doesn't really matter too much if you get it wrong, because BL Heli you can actually correct your motor spinning direction, so that's no drama. You can see I've got them nice and flat here, so I have 1 wire, 2 and 3 all next to each other. So the one on the far left goes to the point that's closest to the end, and then the center one goes to the next one, and then the one on the far right goes to the third one in on your flight controller. That's all the prop wires tin, guys. Don't put too much on, just need to lightly cover it so that when you do fasten to your EC points, they just pretty much roll straight on and stick without any trouble at all. What you don't want to do is end up with too much solder and start to bridge those points. Motor wires all soldered. I like to solder mine on the outside here. Just means that once it's all together, if I do have an incident or I need to do some resoldering, I don't need to take the whole stack off. I can just do the work from the outside. I-bus. So there'll be 3 little tags, so you need to bridge the center and the left one with the board facing forward. It's just down here. Make sure you bridge those with a dab of solder so that you can run your S-bus crossfire protocol. Stack on, VTX on, matter of 4 nuts, quite simple and straightforward. Now let's start connecting up our crossfire receiver and our camera. Okay, so camera attached up the front here. You can see I've trailed the wires underneath the VTX here, so it's nice and clean and out of the way. I've soldered up my TBS crossfire. Now I just need to put a plug on the end and attach it to this port just here for your TBS crossfire. As you saw in the picture, don't forget to add an additional wire to your VTX here. Don't forget to enable smart audio on the 109. You need to add another wire on the far right pin here and solder that to your flight controller. I'll have a picture up on the screen in 2 seconds so you can see which tab to wire it to, so that you can enable UART4 on Betaflight so you can get your smart audio. Get ready to pause the picture if you guys need to see what I'm talking about. Here it is running. With that all done, we've got our camera hooked up, crossfire receiver hooked up. Let's put it together and finish the build. Just about there. My nano antenna nicely fitted up the front here. Battery strap lightly fastened. VTX antenna on. I've been over all the nuts and bolts and everything. Camera. Attached my crossfire receiver just under here. Attached it to this bar going across. Keeps it away from the VTX because it gets quite warm on top of the VTX plate there. Betaflight settings. Betaflight connection. So once you've plugged her in, go down to your ports. If you've put on your TBS crossfire like I have, you'll need to make sure UART1 is selected for your serial RX. And if you have added the additional wire to enable TBS Smart Audio, which is that fourth wire onto your flight controller, you'll need to make sure UART4 is selected. So just jump back to that picture that I've supplied. There'll be a link in the description of the actual time the picture is at in this video, if you guys are wondering what I'm talking about. Down to configuration, you won't need to touch too much here. We have 8K set up, DShot 600, and of course make sure you have selected crossfire here if you're running crossfire, and serial base receiver, otherwise it's not going to work. I don't have any RSSI set up here because I'm using my crossfire RSSI on an auxiliary channel, so I can have my RSSI link quality on my on-screen display. This is all bog stock standard, air mode, telemetry, soft, OSD, dynamic. I have the RX lost and set turned on in case I have a failure of some sort, and everything here is pretty much turned on. That's all we need to do here. Nothing to touch. Power and battery, failsafe is all standard. PID tuning I haven't touched. There are a couple of different rate profiles here, but I've just got this set to 1 and 1. Receiver, make sure your receiver is connected and you have the right channel map. If your little diagram here is spinning the wrong way when you adjust your sticks, that's probably why. You may need to select a different map. Modes, your standard modes, arm, angle, horizon and beeper. Motors, just check the motor direction guys, make sure it's spinning properly. On screen display, I haven't actually set mine up yet, so I'm just going to put on my standard on-screen display menu items. Make sure you hit save, or nothing will save. Video transmitter, so R4 600 of power. Smart audio, just power up my quad. If you do power your quad up and it doesn't say device ready. Yes, there's something wrong with your smart audio. For example, you have selected an incorrect UART, or you haven't wired up correctly the additional wire that's needed so that you can get smart audio on this particular quad. That's pretty much it for Betaflight. It says onboard SD, so you can actually have your flight logs recorded to an SD card if you like with this 109 board. And lastly, I like to do a little bit of a dump and save all my CLI to a file in case I need it in the future. Accelerometer, calibration, make sure we're facing forward, and reset our Z axis. Excellent, all done. Let's put the props on. The finished product, guys, looks pretty good. It's come together really nicely. I've mounted my crossfire antenna up the front here. A little bit of super duper man glue on these zip ties, so she's nice and firm and stable. Really interested to see how it flies. This is probably a super long video, so I'm not going to fly it at the moment. Plus it's drizzling outside, so I don't want to get it wet. And yes, I will be doing a direct comparison with the original 109 to see how both of these perform together with the identical battery. And I'm going to be plugging on a GPS to this unit too to see how fast this thing rips, because I think she's going to fly fairly well. I'll have a fly of this first, but for my comparison video I will put the Azure props on the new 109 with the Racerstar motors, and we'll do a comparison and see how they both perform. Should be a cracker. Pretty straightforward build, guys. Nothing hard about it at all. You just need a soldering iron, a magnifier, a little bit of patience, and a couple of hours to spare, and you are well and truly sorted. Thumbs up, guys. Smash on that bell. Grab my next video that's coming up of this 109 in flight. Should be beauty. Much appreciated, and see you next time. Bye for now.